Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. Hope everyone is doing well out there this morning and having a fantastic start to your day and a great week out there so far. It's almost the weekend, so that's always good. Here to bring you the latest information on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Thursday. Of course, the big topic, once again, is severe weather. I don't think it's going to be as bad as yesterday, but there's a couple areas to watch. Really, 3 areas to watch. And we're going to break this down kind of right at the beginning of the video. We'll have a timestamp up for it. And I'm going to break it up in kind of 3 different sections that I am watching today. One area I'm watching really isn't highlighted that much from the Storm Prediction Center, but I do think it'll get highlighted here in the next update or two. So we'll talk about what I mean. We'll break down the Ohio Valley, areas of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, all the way down to Florida, and talk about this damaging wind risk and tornado risk for today. We'll break down the entire rest of the lower 48 also for you folks, like we always do. And then stay tuned for the very end of the video. There is the potential for next Monday and Tuesday, but especially Monday, for a severe weather event where the ingredients could potentially come together to one of those higher end events. And I'm talking about even higher end than what we just dealt with yesterday. Kind of a dry line setup, one of your classic plains type setups that we haven't seen in quite some time. I would say, it's been a while since we've seen one of those nasty Oklahoma, Kansas, etc. outbreaks. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but the ingredients could potentially come together for something significant. I don't want to overhype the heck out of it, but some of the hype you're going to hear about this on YouTube or Twitter or X, whatever they call it these days, Facebook, it might be warranted. So we'll discuss that a little bit at the very end of the video, and we'll talk about that. And of course, that's going to become a bigger topic in the future videos over the next few days into the weekend. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. I may be storm chasing today. I'm like 50-50 on the fence about it. I might head up to North Carolina, and I'll show you why I might do that here in a second for my folks in North Carolina and Virginia. So a lot of rain across areas of the Ohio Valley, even some rain in the Midwest. A lot of rain with a surface low spinning around here along the Mississippi Valley region. And this will continue to cruise northeastward pretty fast. We got a lot of rain up here in southern Ontario, lower Michigan, into New York. And of course down here, entering the Big Bend of Florida, we have a line of strong to severe storms. In fact, they are severe warned right now. Southeast Georgia, eastern South Carolina, seeing a lot of rain. One thing I've noticed, the heaviest rain did not get, in fact, it was modeled horribly on the models. And the kind of northern extent of this heavy rain and storm activity did not get near as far north as what the models were showing at one point for like South Carolina especially. So that could play a big factor in the storms that could develop later on this afternoon. We'll talk about that here in a second. So that's what's going on right now. The central portion of the country, a little kind of backflow from this upper trough swinging down. This could get some storms going in the upper Midwest today, and a little bit of energy trying to enter the Pacific Northwest. Watches, warnings, and advisories, all these tan colors. These are wind advisories. Very windy out there. It's very windy right where I'm located right now. In fact, we just got, my weather station just registered like a 25, 30 mile per hour wind gust. I know you're thinking that ain't a lot at all, but when my weather station on my house registers something that high, you know it was probably higher because there's 2 big oak trees that block one side of my weather station that kind of skew the wind gust registered totals. So it's definitely windy out there across the south. We got kind of embedded areas of flood watches. We got red flag warnings across the middle of the country, fire danger. But that's what's going on as far as that. Excessive rainfall outlook in the slight region. That is at least a 15% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles at any given point. This is more so for what's about to happen over the next several hours. And then we'll have to watch widespread rains that will continue over these areas. Pretty large area has a marginal risk, though, today for some flash flooding, at least at 5%. So let's break down the severe weather threats. So here's the broad look. I do want to mention a general risk of thunderstorms right down here with this backflow behind this upper trough. Definitely not going to reach severe limits. Maybe some small hail with this. But there's 2 areas showing up on the Storm Prediction Center. Obviously, one of these areas has an enhanced risk, and that's right here. This was dropped yesterday. And so we have a level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather in eastern Ohio, extreme southwestern sections of PA, not even including Pittsburgh. You're technically in the slight risk. But this enhanced risk goes all the way down into West Virginia. It does include Charleston, West Virginia, and a very small little smidget area of northeast Kentucky. Slight risk has expanded since the kind of the earlier outlooks. This goes all the way up to Lake Erie, all the way down to just about Roanoke, all the way back over to Louisville, Kentucky. So we do have a slight risk down here for what's going on really right now. And really down here deeper into Florida for what's going to happen later on this morning to this afternoon. Then we got a huge marginal risk that covers up everybody in between. I do think, this is Mitch's personal take, we're going to get a slight risk issued somewhere into here. It might connect this slight risk right here, but it's going to get issued right in here. And we're about to talk to you about why here in a second. But here's a closer look at the heaviest impacted area as far as severe weather most likely today. There's that enhanced risk right into here. Okay, and like I said, I do think a slight risk will get issued right into here. So what is this driven off of? Tornado risk. As of right now, there's a 10% risk, not a hatch risk, just a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in this yellow area. Brown area, 5% risk. And then in the entire green, that's a 2% risk. I think they're going to put a 5% risk of a tornado down to here also. I really do. I'm pretty confident in that. I just am. But I might be wrong. The hail outlook, there's a, make sure I say this right. There's a 5% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And then the wind outlook, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And I don't want to leave my folks down here in Florida hanging. You guys do have that 5% risk of a tornado in Florida. We cannot disregard the Florida tornado threat today. 5% risk of a tornado includes basically up to Savannah, very small section of the low country of South Carolina, all the way down to almost, well, pretty much does include Tampa Bay. And then we do have that 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threats, not non-zero, but it's below 5%, so don't even show up on this map. So let's break down Ohio's risk first. Okay, you're dealing with the morning rain this morning. I can tell you, I thought about doing a video last night. Kind of glad I didn't, because the HRRR model definitely showing a different scenario today in Ohio. I would honestly say that maybe the severe weather threat has shifted a little bit further south and east. I'm going to show you that now. But this is this morning. Well, watch as we start to get into about midday. So this is around lunchtime. We start to get a lot of shower and storm activity up down here into Kentucky. West Virginia, you see all these storms right here where basically Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky connect. And then these will continue to rise. They will be quick movers because the surface low is riding up here to the northwest. And typically the closer these storms are to the surface low, the faster the wind flow aloft and at the surface. So the storm motion of these will be quick. But one thing I am noticing on the latest HRRR model, the one that literally just dropped, and even the last few ones, a lot more clustering of storms. Nothing as discrete as it once showed. Now, of course, we don't know exactly the way these storms are going to unfold, but this is different than what was showing yesterday. But I'm telling you, I would say that the tornado threat has shifted a little bit deeper into Kentucky. Into West Virginia, and even Kentucky has it too, but West Virginia, see these clusters of storms, these darker reds, even some purple kind of hues in it right here. You got to watch these areas. So if you live in this section of West Virginia, definitely be mindful of these storms, and they will continue to sweep through. This is around 6 p.m. These storms are still pivoting through West Virginia, and I don't want to not mention Ohio. I definitely think more stable air is in western Ohio. Eastern Ohio, southeastern, these storms too will have the flow aloft, the shear to produce tornadoes also, just more clustered in nature. Down here in Kentucky, these storms too are packing a punch. And we start to get into this evening. You're going to get some storms into Pittsburgh too. We start to get into this evening, and most of this energy is starting to clear out. I think more cool and dry air is beginning to kind of pivot through the Ohio Valley, and I think the severe weather threat drops off pretty significantly once you get into the late evening hours. But, there's the updraft Felicity swath. It was really highlighting southeastern Ohio and some of the overnight runs and last night's runs, but now it's kind of shifted more so into West Virginia. So, them West Virginia mountains, you guys watch out. The backcountry of West Virginia, we could have some storms capable of producing some tornadoes rolling over the hills and mountains of areas of West Virginia. So please be aware of this. I know your higher elevations is over here in West Virginia, but there is definitely going to be some storms capable of producing tornadoes. And just because you don't see any highlighted areas on the updraft velocity swath in this region right here, that does not mean you couldn't get any tornadoes in Ohio. You got the 10% risk of a tornado there for a reason. Down here in Kentucky, also, watch out southwest PA also. Okay, so please be aware of that. So we're going to spend some time on Virginia, North Carolina, even South Carolina, okay? This is a tricky area that only has a marginal risk right now. Right now, it only has a marginal risk. One thing that I have noticed is that, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, the morning rain it was modeled really bad. It did not get as far north as what the model showed. So I do think this is going to clear on out. This is all the morning mess. This is getting into about 2, 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon. All this stuff, these storms will try to really kind of redevelop, and they could pack a punch along the eastern South Carolina, southeastern sections of North Carolina coastline. So please be aware of some nasty storms later on this afternoon, then eventually they'll clear on out. But let's focus on these storms right here. So this is around 4 p.m. Look at these storms forming in the upstate of South Carolina. First off, look at this clearing that kind of develops right in here. Okay? The main cold front, which is back here, is not cleared through, so the atmosphere is still juiced up right in here. I think the main low-level flow is displaced to the east, but there's still plenty of flow aloft and at the surface for these storms. So these storms literally pivot in, and when they do, I'm telling you, we got to watch for these storms in the foothills, the Piedmont, upstate South Carolina. These storms have the ingredients out ahead of them to produce a tornado risk. So if you live Greenville, Spartanburg, Rock Hill, up to Charlotte, in the entire central portion and even western sections of North Carolina, please be mindful of these storms right into here. Let's go on and just get a little bit closer for you folks. Here we go. In fact, we're starting to get in range now of the 10Z H-R model. So let's just keep it at the 09Z though. But look at these storms. So they even have some pretty good looking structure on them based off just the model output right here. But you got to watch out for these storms. There's still flow aloft. There's plenty of storm energy, honestly. And there's still a very moist air mass in place with this. So we have an overlapping of ingredients of your thermodynamics and your kinematics in this region. So, Hickory right in here, Lincolnton, Statesville, you guys, what is it? Man, I'm brain farting here. Winston-Salem, you guys, be mindful of these storms. And then they'll continue. We start to get to about 8 p.m. The sun's beginning to set. These storms will try to make it all the way to the Raleigh-Durham area, and they'll try to make it all the way up to Roanoke. Look how they have that kind of kidney bean look to them. These are capable of producing a tornado, in my opinion. I really do think they are. They do. And then they continue to get deeper into Virginia and then head on out. And then you kind of lose the daytime heating. So please be mindful of these storms. This is around 2 p.m. They start to develop in northeast Georgia. And check out how they just pivot through the Carolinas into Virginia. And you look at the ingredients of these storms. This is the air mass that kind of is already there ahead of these storms. It's around lunchtime today. Look at these dew points. I mean, you get a surge of dew points down here in near Columbia that could reach into the low 70s. Almost a 70-degree dew point in Charlotte around 3 p.m. And you got this kind of nose of low-level moisture that's got dew points into the upper 60s up into North Carolina today. So you got the moisture there. You really do. And then you kind of compare that with the surface cape levels. And let's get this going. Come on. All right, got to click it. Got to baby it here. And check it out. Around noon, not a lot of energy in the atmosphere, but this is because the atmosphere is still recovering from the morning clouds and light rain. But check out as you get to about early afternoon. This is around 2 p.m. You got surface cape levels over 1,500, 1,800 joules per kilogram in the upstate of South Carolina. And then if you notice, this is the hodograph right here. This is kind of the, this is basically showing where we're having a spin in the atmosphere, okay? Basically, you see the more that this is hooking right here, the more of the ingredients are supporting a tornado in the atmosphere, okay? I want to mix up, get tongue twisted there. But we start to get into around 3 p.m. Look at these surface cape levels approaching over 2,000 joules per kilogram. And then you continue to get into about 4, 5, 6 p.m. Let's take it back to about 4 p.m. You got CAPE levels over Charlotte. I mean, even down to South Carolina. But where are the best lift for storms going to form? Probably more so into here. Charlotte up to like Hickory, Statesville. You got CAPE levels at the surface reaching over 2,000 joules per kilogram. And, you know, you take a sounding out of this area, kind of around the Charlotte region, for example. And, yeah, look at this kind of looping hodograph. Now, this is getting more veered because the cold front is approaching. Dry air aloft, cool air aloft is there. You got that shot of dry air. But, you know, not a super saturated column. So, to me, you know, I think that this is going to allow for some discrete storms, maybe some discrete supercells, rotating thunderstorms. So this is going to be an interesting thing that could play out in North Carolina today. It really could. And then that area of energy really begins to kind of fizzle out once it gets into Virginia into the late afternoon, evening hours. But there's that maxed out area of energy right into here. And if I do storm chase, this is the area I'm going to head into right into here. So pretty wild stuff. And you look at the significant tornado parameter, folks. Look how it maximizes right into here. I mean, you got 4s, 5s, and then check out around like 6 p.m. Significant tornado parameter spikes to like an 8, 9, even 10 just northeast and east of Charlotte, even into South Carolina. But are we going to actually have any storms that do form? So, man, you got to watch this. You got to watch out for this today. That's why I do think they'll put a 5% risk of a tornado risk right into this region. I really do think. So, we'll watch for that. And then for my folks in Florida and even southern Georgia. I think southern Georgia, I think your severe weather threat will be pretty much done by about lunchtime today, for the most part, should be. But you see these lines of storms kind of making their way very slowly through, through Florida. In fact, we can just go on and dive a little bit deeper into Florida at this point. These storms, I want to make a note here. The winds ahead of these storms, you can already feel it as you're waking up this morning in Florida. The winds ahead of these storms are going to be whipping. I mean, they are. You got a strong southerly flow ahead of this. But these storms, I mean, you do have a tornado risk with these storms today. You know, about midday, early this afternoon, these are starting to inch closer to the Tampa Bay area, the Orlando region. And then we start to get to around 3 p.m. They're really packing a punch right for the central portion of the peninsula of Florida. And then, you know, watch out along the Space Coast. And I think by the time they kind of ooze down to Miami, they pretty much have lost all steam at this point. But you do look at the updraft velocity swath, and there it is, you know, indicating a little bit of embedded rotation with some of these storms. We're probably going to get a couple tornado warnings in Florida today, most likely. I do want to mention the winds. Let's look at the National Weather Service for this, and then we'll kind of go out. And, you know, it's not indicating much, but I do think we're going to get steady 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gust out ahead of this line and along this line in Florida. Very windy day in the peninsula of Florida today for sure. So the rest of the southeast, I do want to cover that too. I do think we're going to get some storms that are possible in northern Alabama, North Georgia today. Some storms more elevated in nature. In Tennessee, could produce some small hail if you live in like central Tennessee along the Cumberland Plateau. Definitely be aware of these storms, but I do think they're lacking any kind of thermodynamics. Dry, cool shot of air kind of moving in. I think this is displaced from ingredients that do support severe weather. But do be aware in northern Alabama through central sections of Tennessee up into southern Kentucky for some storms today. And eventually they'll turn more so just to rain as they get into the southern Alps regions and just the higher elevations of the North Carolina and Tennessee. So be aware of that. Maybe some back end kind of northwest flow pivoting around the trough. Could get some very high elevation snow in the Smokies. Wouldn't be surprised at all. And then we look up here in the northeast, dealing with that just more widespread rainfall today. Some of these showers get all the way up to Maine. We'll probably get a little bit of a dry opening today in the northeast. Clouds will hang around though. And then as we start to get into this evening around dinner time, heavy rain begins to fall in western New York State, western PA. We already talked about those storms in West Virginia. Some storms are possible later this evening into western Maryland. Watch out for these storms in eastern Virginia today. Just on and off light and moderate rain across the northeast. We got a lot of rain up here in southern Ontario. It looks like the surface low rides right over southern Ontario. and heads up into Quebec. A lot of rain up here in Quebec. Back in cooler rain into lower Michigan. And then as we're waking up tomorrow morning, certainly getting these storms in New England that are rolling through the region. We're probably going to be waking up some storms in eastern PA tomorrow. I don't know if they'll be significant by any means. I don't think so. But waking up to just a rainy, dreary, if it's not raining, start to your day for your Friday across the Northeast. The South Central U.S., there ain't a whole lot to mention for this. It's a pretty quiet, pretty nice day. Definitely getting a break from all the crazy weather from the beginning of the week. So enjoy your day. There's really nothing to speak on whatsoever. That'll be different. Totally different story as we get over the next couple days, though. We'll be talking about you folks heavily. Today in the north central U.S., we'll get that back in flow. We could get some thunderstorms that form in Wisconsin, kind of west of Green Bay, into sections of the UP and Michigan. You know, there's no thermodynamics to really support much in the way of any severe weather, but there's a lot of cold air aloft, of course, with the backside of this trough, more of the cooler, drier side of this system. And you're probably going to get some small hail with some of these storms. Don't be surprised whatsoever. And just some back-end flow that kind of pivots around this. So some thunder, maybe some small hail with this in Wisconsin, areas of eastern Minnesota, all the way down into northern Illinois tonight. And then just some more widespread rain that could overspread to the eastern half of the UP and Michigan later overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Look at a little bit of snow showing up on the colder side, this low right here pivoting around Lake Huron. So out west, nothing to really speak on. Enjoy your weather. It's nice today for sure. A little bit of rain up into the sections of the Pacific Northwest. The Olympic Mountains is what I was trying to say. Maybe if you're way, way up in the higher elevation, a little bit of snow will mix in. Just pretty much getting into mid-April now. You're not going to see much of any way of any kind of snow. You are, but you're not going to see near as much. But the western U.S., pretty quiet today. Waking up to some rain along the Oregon coastline, more than likely in northwest California coastline. Temperatures today, see this pocket of cooler air right here. And, you know, there is enough of kind of a slither of thermodynamics, warmer surface temperatures that is going to support, you know, some thunderstorms up into Wisconsin. It's what we just mentioned here. But you can see where the rain continues to fall, pocket of cooler air right in here. And, of course, there's the warming ahead of a clearing that will develop, that will allow for more thunderstorm development that we just broke down. You know, the middle of the country's a little bit more, that's kind of weird. Middle of the country is certainly cooler today. Let's go here in time. Definitely cooler today. You know, 60s in Oklahoma. A little bit cooler once you get a little bit further north, but a pretty nice day all in all. I mean, it's definitely warming up in the western U.S. and very warm down here in the Southwest for sure. You know, some of the big cities in California, Arizona, L.A., L.A. down to San Diego, Phoenix, Las Vegas. You guys will be in the 70s and 80s today. Very nice day for sure. So let's talk about what's to come very briefly. Not going to spend a ton of time on this, folks, but I will mention there is an enhanced risk already for day 5. And there's a huge slight risk that extends all the way from central Iowa to central Texas. Guys, this has I'm telling you, and I'm not going to read the discussion word for word from the Storm Prediction Center, but we will dive into that and what they're talking about here in the later videos. But this has the possibility of being one of those higher end events. As of right now, a very large, I mean, considerably speaking, this is a very large enhanced risk already. Level 3 out of 5 at day 5. We already had the enhanced risk yesterday. They are highly confident. The only outlier model that's not showing as bad of a scenario as all the other ones is GFS, but it's an outlier at this point. But this does include, I mean, Oklahoma City, so up to Wichita. So right now, we'll see what happens. But this is going to be something that's going to be highly watched over the next few days into the weekend. So right now, we know that there's a 30% risk of severe weather within 25 miles of any given location. We shift into Tuesday, April the 16th. Slight risk, 15% risk of severe weather. And this is from the same system, and this basically shifts east. So we definitely think that the Midwest down the Mississippi Valley is going to be a big day for severe weather too. Could be a higher end day also. Just not as confident on that and how the trough ejection is going to behave. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a bigger event. It really is. And it's all because of this system right here, this little mid-upper low that pivots out of California. And then we get into Monday morning, and look at this flow rounding the southern base of this trough, and this continues, and then it fully becomes neutrally tilted and then negatively tilted right in here. And look at this exit region of this jet right here going right into Texas, Oklahoma, into Kansas. And we are going to have the initiation of storms along a pretty stout dry line most likely. And guys, these will produce all hazards. And this could be a higher end tornado threat too. But this, if you can, I don't have a way to draw on this, but this is neutrally tilted, and then look how it takes on that negative tilt. Then it fully ejects across the plains. And yeah, this severe weather threat will carry on into the overnight hours of Monday. And then by the time we get into Tuesday, this is fully negatively tilted and likely bringing a lot of severe weather into the Midwest also. This is the mid-level flow, and it is, on a higher end, and it's compact. And honestly, typically we have more of those higher end events when it's more of a compact looking mid-level jet. But guys, this looks significant. It does. And of course, as it basically digs and then takes on that neutral tilt and then fully ejects across the plains, this is going to bring in plenty of moisture. But the one thing to note is you already have a couple days ahead of Monday where you already have moist air building ahead of this upper low that's going to swing across the southern sections of the western U.S. So, you start to get into Saturday. I know this isn't a ton of moist air, but you already got dew points into the 50s, 40s, across the plains, already building in. And then you get into Sunday. Already a ton of moisture building ahead of the big severe weather day, which is Monday, not Sunday. Already dew points rising into the 60s all the way into sections of Kansas, definitely Oklahoma. And then, of course, you get into Monday. Tons of moist air. Dew points in the 60s, upper 60s. This is something that typically lacks in plains setups is your surface moisture. It will not be lacking this time more than likely. So we got to watch this. We'll get much more detailed on this in the coming days. But, as we start to get into Tuesday afternoon, we got to watch the moisture that it will be there across the Mississippi Valley. But you can see the slither going up the Mississippi River. That will certainly be there for surface moisture. So we'll talk more on this in the coming days, guys. We need to get past today, and then pretty much all of our attention is going to shift to that because we need to figure this out for you folks to live in the plains. God bless all y'all. Have a great day. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.